I'm trying really hard to focus on my thesis, but I'm getting a divorce. This is what a researcher said to me, and I was like, damn, that's so real. It's already enough to be dealing with the PhD, which I feel has to fall under like one of the top 10 most traumatic things that can happen in someone's life. I know that number one is moving. Moving is like the number one trauma of humans' lives. Today, I want to talk about trying to work when you're grieving. If it's your first time here, hi, I'm Xanthe, the feral academic, and welcome to the Authentic Academic Movement, where we are honest, feral, and anti bullshit. When I was thinking about how open and vulnerable this woman was with us, I mean, I had never met her in my life. We were just talking about how our thesis was going, and she was like, I've told my supervisors that it's really hard because I'm going through a divorce. Divorce is traumatic. I am not married. I have not been divorced. I don't know what it's like. From those who I know who have been divorced, seems like an incredibly difficult transition, even if you were the one that wanted to separate. I was thinking about this, but also because I've been experiencing my own kind of grief. I've really experienced how grief is nonlinear in the way that you'll be totally fine. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you just start crying. Or out of nowhere, you'll think about how terrible the situation went or how you really feel. It's really quite the roller coaster. When you're trying to focus on something like your university degree, that's really difficult. To give a little bit of context, I've been having a rough week because of said uninvited grief. One day I'll be totally excited and fine, and then another day I'll be down in the dumps and can hardly focus, ruminating and ruminating. This morning I had a meeting that felt kind of like off. I was already struggling to focus on my work throughout the day, even though I was co-working. I received an email that just threw me off. It was just when I was talking to my friend about the email that kind of threw me off, it's related to university. I just felt like, why do people do this? Like, why can't they just speak to me to my face? And then he mentions, remember, this is a message that you don't have context for. We don't know what happens. Just wait until you speak in person. And remember, you're in the UK. I've been here for a couple of years now. I'm only starting to get used to the communication styles of the Brits, but it is quite jarring when you're neurodivergent, but also come from an American context where speaking directly to someone is respect. There are different cultures with different nuances and different expectations and different ways of being raised. So, to go back to grief, what do you do when you have deadlines? Communicate to whoever needs to know. The woman who is getting a divorce. From what I remember, she communicated to her supervisors, hey, I'm going through this thing. Just to let you know, I'm having a hard time. There's no surprises. Like, you don't have to give the nitty gritty detail of what happened in your life, but at least tell them to give you some grace. Because if you don't say anything, they're just going to assume that you're not doing anything or you are doing something. And when you show up with less work than they expected, it's going to throw them off. They're supervisors, but they are people who have a lot of feelings just like you. I'll give you an example for me. I was going through a breakup at the time and I did not tell my supervisors that I was, but I just emailed them and I was like, hi, I'm having a really hard time in my personal life. Just to let you know, I might be kind of slow. So please don't let me go. They didn't ask questions. Some people are more emotionally open than others. Some supervisors, they might be like, I'm here if you want to talk. And then some might just be like, ooh, emotions. Fair enough. You're an adult. You cannot turn your supervisors into therapists. They have their own stuff that they're dealing with. This is why I recommend that PhD students have therapists. And honestly, they should be funded by the university. I will die on that hill. So communicate to your supervisors or whoever's on your team. If you have colleagues that you're working with, teamwork teammates, co-researchers, friends. You need to tell your friends that you trust so they can support you. I remember I had told my friend that was telling me, hey, let's not spiral. He's such a great listener. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Let's go do something fun. It's gonna be all right. He can get fucked. You know, sometimes you need to hear that. I'm not a very like angry person, but I would say it's good to get angry. Go through all of the stages of grief and recognize that give yourself permission to go through all the stages of grief, whatever they are. Do we know? I don't know, but I know I'm going through it right now. You can be sad, you can be angry, you can be resentful, because if you allow yourself to feel all of these feelings and don't judge yourself for them, you will come out of it much stronger and more focused on your PhD again when you are ready. It is not going to last forever. You know, when I was going through my breakup, I was like, did not eat for a long time, just in bed, just literally not having an appetite. But then the therapist that I was seeing was like, maybe you should just at least, you know, make sure you get some protein. One of my really good friends, she was like, when I feel that way, make a protein shake. You just got to pack that in, something that's low maintenance, sip that up. You have to find ways to at least try to take care of yourself and hydrate. See if you can walk around, do a mental health walk, as they say. I went to the movies a lot. I ate a lot of movie nachos, and they were very comforting and shitty, but wonderfully shitty, because you're already going through such a hard time, whether that's like someone dying, something not working out in your favor. You really have to be gracious to yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. The way that you imagine talking to a best friend. If your best friend was like, I feel awful, I can't focus on my thesis because my dog died, I'd be like, damn, that sucks. I am so sorry. I am here for you. What do you want? What do you need from me? Can I make you some food? Blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't be like, girl, you need to do your PhD and shut up about this dead dog. It's like, no, you would never say that. And if you would, you're a terrible friend and you need to get hooked. Think of it that way. It's not going to be forever. You're going to be fine. I know there's a lot of anxiety of being productive, but you cannot be productive if you do not allow yourself to reset. Some people like to escape into their work or escape to do things to not focus on the grief at hand. However, I do not recommend that. As somebody who has done that in the past and someone who is a workaholic, I have learned that it is so important to process your feelings, because people who work through their feelings, they think that they're like skipping the grief. They're like, I don't need to deal with that. I don't need to deal with that. Goodbye, goodbye, grief. I'm too busy for you. File that away. But the truth is, it just builds up. It's like you're filing it away, but guess what? That's going to become crowded at some point. It's going to bust out of that file cabinet. Do people still use file cabinets? It's going to bust out of that digital folder. You are going to crumble instead of neatly organizing the files and being like, this is really uncomfortable that I'm organizing these emotional files, but guess what? It's going to be fine in the end because it's organized, rather than you're packing it in a whole bunch of crap because you can't deal with it. I was working with someone in the past who told me about his mother dying. And that's huge, especially when you're really close with a parent. He said he was working on this huge project and it happened while that he had to keep the show going because it was like a massive project that he just couldn't stop. He went through it, did not cry, thought, this sucks, but you know what? I'm going to get through it. All of a sudden, he was hosting a party. And then he said, out of nowhere, at his party, when all of his friends were there, he just started bawling really intensely, and it just confused the hell out of him. That's what grief is. It's going to come at the most awkward of times, the most inconvenient of times. You're just going to have to be okay with it. There's just a lot of stigma around like showing emotion, especially in academic spaces, in professional spaces. Crying is seen as something that's too much or not appropriate. Like, why? especially if you're in your own private space. Give yourself permission to cry. So, how do I deal with grief when I have deadlines? It's a combination of things. I will allow myself to get through it. One time I gave myself blocks of grief. Okay, I'm going to do my best to work on the PhD, and in this 15-minute break, I'm going to allow myself to wallow and ruminate. And once that 15 minutes is up, get up on that desk and start working again. When the next 15-minute break comes up, go grieve and repeat. That worked for me during like the really fresh days. I would say it's a good system if you can have a little discipline. It actually does help. There are days where I can't function, and that's when I need to call in my friends and be like, is anyone co-working today? Because I will not get anything done. So lean on your friends who are working, and then do things you enjoy. Eat things that you enjoy. People worry about gaining weight, losing too much weight when they're depressed or sad, but it's not forever. I was talking to another PhD friend who was like, oh, I've gained so much weight during the final year of my thesis. And you know what? I needed it. And sometimes it can be like that. Or some people process by going to the gym. Let's plan a gym trip. You know, we need that dopamine. Dopamine? No, it's something else I can't think of right now. If it's really hard for you, find like groups, support groups. That's one of the most beautiful things we have as a society is communities online. You can easily find forums and all this stuff to kind of like process it. What are your safe foods? What are your favorite foods? If you're like, I would need me a delicious mushroom pizza, then have a mushroom pizza with some ice cream. Be like, this is my unhappy meal. If you have the budget, go to a therapist, please, especially while it's fresh. This can feel very vulnerable for people. Like therapy can be so hard because it causes you to acknowledge things and speak things out loud. It's always painful, but I really recommend it. Watch a sad story. If you're the type that likes to cry from movies, that can be really cathartic too. If you have something that really saved you, was like a hot tip on how to grieve and work at the same time or kind of balance the two, please let us know because I would love to hear it. If there's only one thing that you learn from this video, be kind to yourself, my friend, and allow yourself to feel the feelings. Like really, and when I say feel the feelings, it's not just like blindly crying and not understanding what's going on. Really think about it. Like, why am I crying? Why am I feeling this way? What am I hiding from? What feelings am I hiding from? Because I don't want to cry or because I don't want to look, and just try and let it out. If you feel unsafe and triggered by doing that, go to a therapist and have them walk through it with you. Lean on your family or friends and your own heart. The PhD is always going to be there. It's not the end of the world. If you're grieving, communicate it to them. There are systems in place where I'm sure they can provide accommodations due to grief and having mental health challenges. To me, it's the same as like if you had COVID, if you're extremely sick, like you physically can't work. That's the same thing with mental health issues. You literally physically can't work because you're ill and you need help and you need healing and you need time. Definitely do not feel any shame for needing to grieve and just letting people know you need some space and time and support. I hope this was helpful. And if anyone is going through a really hard time and trying to manage grief alongside your university workload, just know that you are not alone. I mean, look at me. I'm like feeling super shit and still making this video because just hoping that someone out there feels the same and finds this video some kind of comfort because we don't talk about it enough. And what about holidays? Christmas, Father's Day, Mother's Day. What if, like, we lost someone? Really take care of yourselves, as grief can be so nonlinear, so out of nowhere. That is all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if this resonated with you and you'd like to keep in touch. I would greatly appreciate it. I am sending you love, hugs, and legal drugs. Have a beautiful morning, afternoon, or evening. I will see you in the next video. Bye.